Good afternoon. My name is Itamar Cass, and this is our podcast about good health and well-being.
Hello, my name is Alberto Jaime.
I'm ja- I'm Jana Salinas.
So, what exactly is our goal? Well, our goal is to make medicine more accessible to people at lower prices for everyone at a worldwide scale.
Why good health and well-being? Good health and well-being are very important towards society. Unfortunately, not a lot of people can afford healthcare and medicine. This is because medicine is very expensive. This is why we want to make it affordable for people so people have the necessities of medicine to be healthy.
So, what we're trying to implement is by making medicine more affordable by buying directly from the pharmaceutical distributors and by passing the middleman, which is the FDA. And this will make 15% the medicine 50% more cheaper than it usually is. The only thing we need to know is a prescription, how we'll get that medicine beforehand and to send an order. Furthermore, with these prices, we will make millions of families able to afford medicine for the loved ones who depend on it to survive, like diabetic patients. We are not the only ones who are trying to implement this, since we are greatly inspired by Mark Cuban, who already has this form away, but he only has it um, nationwide, which on the US, but we are trying to make it globally.
So, we have three different countries that we would like to talk about, and they're all different economic statuses. But our first country is Canada. And in Canada, the medicines are 50 to 80% from Canadian pharmacies. All 13 different territories and provinces have their own insurance health plans, their own basic health plans. And in Canada, the government actually gives you money for healthcare assistance.
Our second world country. Our second world country is Mexico. In countries such as Mexico, medicine is very cheap compared to the United States. While monthly supply of insulin in the United States costs about $500,000, a monthly supply in Mexico costs roughly about $67.
A third world country. Surprisingly, a third world country such as South Sudan has free healthcare and affordable medicine, while a first world country as the US doesn't, and their medicine is really expensive, so which makes you wonder why is this happening? And the healthcare average cost for South Sudan is $30, while in the US can be thousands of dollars, and medicine alone costs thousands of dollars, and people can't afford that.
So how? How do we plan to implement this idea? Well, we have two different ideas. First, we can partner up with the prescription drug manufacturers and sell these medicines at a high discounted rate. Or we create a company that works with prescription drug producers that will work worldwide, like the prescription drug version of Amazon, where we're able to ship worldwide to any place in the world.
Our project similarity is basically we were inspired by Mark Cuban's virtual pharmacy. Mark Cuban reduces prescription drugs drastically by buying prescription drugs in bulk and selling it cheap to his customers, but we want to make this globally.
So shipping. Shipping is a huge major issue we have to deal with this project. Since we want to do it globally, we'll have to have many distributors and warehouses across the globe to make shipping more cheaper for everybody. Since it's going to be like Amazon, everybody has to have an equal pay. They have to pay for shipping, but some places may have to pay a lot. So that's why we want to make more warehouses across the world to make it more accessible.
So, about those distribution areas, well, to make things more affordable for the globe, it has to be very clever and very well thought out on where we place the different distribution centers. We'll have to work with different pharmaceutical companies in many different countries, Germany, Egypt, in India, a bunch of different warehouses will have to set up in many different locations, and they're all going to be distinct and they're all going to maintain the standard of having affordable healthcare or affordable medicine within that respective country.
Well, thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed our project about good health and well-being, and we want to make medicine more affordable. And here's your contact information. Thank you.
My question, so you talked about that you're hoping to extend, I summarize the proposal. It seems like you're trying to extend Mark Cuban's initiative to provide lower cost drugs, not just in the US, but kind of worldwide, to kind of level the playing field so that everyone has access to the life-saving drugs they need, which I think is very admirable. But you also talked about that healthcare is less expensive in many other countries. And so I'm curious, are drugs, the legal ones at least, very expensive in the rest of the world relative to the United States?
So one of our prime examples was Mexico. So Mexico average cost of monthly use of insulin is about $67 compared to the United States average insulin of $500. Relatively, yes, the U.S. cost of medicine is way more expensive than other countries.
In your studies and your research, did you learn a little bit more about how was Mark Cuban able to penetrate the drug market in order to buy in bulk? And as a follow-up question to that, by doing this, how much money is he saving on an average, the consumer, the end user, by buying in bulk and selling directly?
So the way that he was able to bypass it is buying it directly from pharmaceutical companies. So the way that happens is that because it's not a licensed product, such as like Advil or Aleve or Tylenol, he doesn't have to run it through necessarily the FDA as a patent product would because of the name brand. So overall, it saves about over $9,000 in medicinal costs.
So he's doing this more for generic drugs. Is he able to also do this for name brand drugs?
So he was able to do this for both types of drugs.
Okay, great. Well, excellent presentation, and the video portion of it, you guys did a good job in your research. So, thank you very much.
I have a quick question. Just curious, is Mark Cuban partnering with insurance companies at all? And do you feel like insurance companies with their current structure would hinder or assist you guys' a solution?
So it will probably become an issue with the insurance companies just because of the capitalist market that we do live in. Seeing that insurance companies would probably stand to lose from this. But the whole issue that we're trying to address is not having necessarily insurance because some people can't necessarily afford the insurance. So just having that medicine at such a low cost that they don't even need to have insurance for it to have that low cost is what our main goal is.
Were there a lot of obstacles in doing this? Because it seems like a great solution, right? Buy in bulk, sell it directly to people. But he must have, had a lot of obstacles and hurdles to jump through.
He did suffer some obstacles, more mental issue, because passing the middleman in FDA does require a lot of authority. So he had to pay a bunch of money, millions of money, to be able to bypass the FDA and be able to do that while staying on regulation and during the law.
I guess my final question would be, during your research here, did you find out specifically why medicine is more costly here than, I believe you guys mentioned, Mexico and Canada?
So, for example, in Mexico, a lot of the medicine from Mexico has the similar format as to what we're trying to introduce, where it's not name brands, but it's just, for example, ibuprofen. You buy it as ibuprofen, not Tylenol or whatever else patent named it is. And for example, with Canada, they have healthcare plans for people around their nation, and each healthcare plan is different within the different provinces and territories of Canada. But the way that our economy works in the United States, pharmaceutical companies try to make the most profit they can. And these big name companies like Tylenol and Aleve try to make the most money they can off of these medicinal products because they know how big of a demand there is for it.
Hello, this is my presentation for the wealth gap. My group was unable to record this together, so we're all going to do it separately. So here it is. I can get the slide to change. Here we go. So, what is a wealth gap? The disparity of income between different races and ethnicities. There is a huge difference between the way wealth and income is distributed between countries, states, groups of people, etc. So basically, what this means is the disparity of income between different races and ethnicities. So basically, what that means is two different races and cultures can have two different sets of incomes. For example, you have your African Americans where their wealth is maybe middle class or to lower class, and then you have Caucasians where theirs is high mid class or high class, considered rich and wealthy, and it all starts off at birth. And the wealth gap is a very common thing, and it's a very repeated cycle. And our group believes that we should definitely figure out a solution to change this. And also, wealth gap isn't just in difference in races and ethnicities, but also the way the wealth gap income is distributed. For example, you have USA. USA has over trillions of dollars in debt, yet they constantly make income. But then you have other countries that are poor and who can use some of this money, yet it doesn't happen. Now, why does that happen? Well, let's find out. So it happens because of the economic differences between the upper middle and lower class. They have grown over time, and just the wealth gap has increased a lot from when it started. So the imbalance between diverse groups of people puts democracy at risk, and poverty worsens as wage inequality develops. The redistribution of income can solve poverty faster, developing economies and greater equality, economic growth. So not fixing the economic wealth gap means less future growth. So basically, this means if we don't stop the wealth gap, if we don't find a solution for the wealth gap, then there will be no future. Because if the same group of people, the same countries, the same states constantly rule, how will there be a change? Because their ideas, their wealth, all of that stuff will stay the same, and they will constantly keep passing down, keep sharing, and there will be nothing and no one in the future to grow or change because of this said wealth gap. Now, some history on the wealth gap. So the wealth gap begins around 1915, around the 1920s, but it really peaks around 1920s, 30s to the 2000s, with a 30-year period of relatively lower inequality. Between 1950 and 1980. The U.S. has the highest level of income inequality among its post-industrial peers. So what that means is in the United States, in the United States, we have the highest amount of wealth gap in the world. Because you have people like Donald Trump, Bill Gates, people like that. And then you have African Americans or Hispanics and all of those people, the lower class on the streets suffering poverty. Yet these people can have billions of dollars and nothing happens. So some more history, it even goes back to Black Wall Street. The prosperous town, founded by many descendants of slaves. earned a reputation as the Black Wall Street of America and became a harbor for African Americans in highly segregated city under Jim Crow laws. On May 31st, 1921, a white mob turned Greenwood upside down in one of the worst racial massacres in U.S. history. So Black Wall Street was really a community of African Americans who built businesses and built a whole economy for themselves without the help of Caucasians, without the help of any other culture, any other race, just African Americans. They did this alone by themselves. Yet the wealth gap started here. Excuse me. And this is one of the big contributions to the wealth gap. I'm not saying contribution as good, but this is something that provoked the wealth gap because the whites could not handle the African Americans in their own economy, in their own system. So the Caucasians thought it would be a great idea to just go through and end everything that the African Americans created. Therefore, leading to the whites always ruling and them always having majority of the wealth and leaving the minorities poor. So, how can we solve the wealth gap? Well, that question is, of course, harder said than done, or easier said than done. But our group has come up with a great plan. If you look right here, we have come up with a great plan to solve this. So here is the income wealth gap and the global wealth distribution. All we have to do is find a way to evenly distribute wealth when kids are born and their families don't have a lot of income. We tax the rich and we get that money and spread it out evenly so everyone can have their fair share, only under certain rights. And here we have the inequality of income. So white households in the United States had 20 times the wealth of African American homes and 80 times. So this goes back to the Black Wall Street. So basically, the wealth gap is a very serious issue, and we hope to get it done with our plan.
I have a question for you. So it seems like your plan to address the situation was that you'd like some sort of redistribution of wealth from the wealthiest individuals in the U.S. to help support those that are more socioeconomically disadvantaged. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about how you hoped that would be accomplished.
So we plan on, hold on, it's like breaking out. We plan on accomplishing this, which is one of our solutions, which is by raising wages. So because of the wealth gap that is in between the lower class and the upper class, we think that by raising wages, we could get everyone somewhat balanced out, you know, so no one's in the bottom of the bracket and no one's like at the very top of the bracket.
Any solutions on how we could resolve this disparity?
Yeah, so y'all said the question was how we can solve this, right? Okay, so we said that investing in human capital would be the best way to increase the individual wealth and increase the labor force. Because if we see the individual skills of each person that has potential, the individual wealth will increase, that will be balanced, just like my teammate Jocelyn said. So it's one of the ways that we plan to cooperate by investing in human capital. And then just to elaborate a little bit more on that, by raising wages and the workers being able to up their skills and their knowledge and their experience in the workforce, which will equal to that pay. So if we raise wages, that equals to to their pay being exactly what they're working for, which means the skills that they have in that specific area they're working for, the knowledge, so you're getting paid for what you're doing.
Is that what you mean by human capital? Investing in people, investing on their skills? Thank you. Good job.
Yes. My question's primarily focused on the increase of wages for employees. Would that affect employers negatively?
In a way that couldn't affect employers because, with the payroll going up, that also means, your profit also, it kind of affects your profit as well. So, you're spending money on your employees as well. With that revenue, with the payroll going up, it could affect their company, but I feel like as though if their company is doing well and their employees are doing their job, it could also play out in a positive way.
Did you guys have any difficulty getting research for the materials that you presented?
Most definitely. So when we first came up with this topic, we didn't really know what to do or where to start off, right? So we also, first we started off with what is the wealth gap, the simple, to build the foundation of our presentation. So we went on to, from there, we described what the wealth gap was, and then we discussed why it is important. And then from there, we were able to also include, different wealth gaps between the United States and Europe. And there is a huge difference between, so yes, getting information was an obstacle for us with building this presentation.
You did a phenomenal job, barring the technological, problems you guys were having, but you guys did a very good job, even in the end, coming in, talking on your phone. So thank you so much for your dedication.
Thank you for your time and your patience, most definitely.
No problem. Great job. Keep up the good work.
Yes, great job. Thank you guys for taking the time to come back in and do the Q&A session with us.
Good work, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much for y'all's time.
No problem.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Wait, is that the preamble of the United States?
Justice is being established, and why in America you're guilty until proven innocent? Because what? It's not the truth that matters, it's what you can prove in court. Wrongfully convicted cases make up half of the inhabitants. In the U.S. today, between 2% and 10% of convicted individuals in the U.S. prisons are innocent. 1% of the prison population is falsely convicted. Black Americans being 7 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted of murders than white people. 13% of African Americans in the U.S. today are accused, but out of that 13%, 47% is convicted and blamed for. What's the truth? What are we hiding from? My question is, when is it going to end? The conviction rate in Canada is 62%, while ours being somewhere in between the two, stating that U.S. has a lack of accountability for police and prosecutors, or reliance on junk signs and mistaken eyewitnesses, leading up to the reason we have over 20,000 cases and only 168 resolved. My solution is to recall on every case that have a lack of verification and that indicates any suspicion towards the convicted inmate. Not only do I want justice in the courtroom, I want it outside of it too. So my next harmony is that all cases will be slowed down and that the time taken will be exonerated, time for every exoneree that have been misinterpreted, leading up to giving justice back to the wrongfully convicted.
Imagine being judged based on the color of your skin. Imagine being accused of something you did not do because of generalization about your race. Imagine being excluded from opportunities because of your race. This is not imagination for people of color. This is reality. According to data in 2009, even though Blacks and Latinos comprised 26 and 27% of New York City's population, respectively, they comprised 84% of the individuals that were stopped. White individuals were 47% of the New York City's population and 9% of the stops. The U.S. is not living up to the Constitution. Every person has the right to equal protection under law, regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, or national origin. Canada and the Nordic countries are viewed as the most committed to social justice, while the U.S. sits at number 18. So why is Canada viewed as one of the countries most committed to social justice? Though in Canada, 21 in 5 experience racial profiling, Canada sets goals for their people. The source language line solution states, Canada's goal is to admit more than 1 million new permanent residents by the end of 2021. Under the plan, total immigration is expected to reach 350,000 new permanent residents over the next 3 years. This will represent an immigration level of nearly 1% of Canada's population, which the nation's government says must be reached by 2030 to ensure economic growth. A way the U.S. could do better with racial profiling is Congress should also urge the Department of Justice to revise its 2003 guidance regarding the use of race by federal law enforcement agencies. The guidance should be revised to prohibit profiling based on religion and national origin, remove national and border security loopholes, and apply to law enforcement surveillance activities.
Everyone should be able to express themselves as much as they please. Most LGBTQ Americans experience discrimination daily, while it's less common for LGBTQ Canadians. Canada stands up for the protection and promotion of human rights. Canada does this by bilaterally and multilateral channels to call on states to decriminalize same-sex conduct, support the work of grassroots LGBTQ organizations abroad, commend violence and discrimination that targets individuals based on their sexual orientation and gender identity.
Health, peace, mortality, and the safety of citizens is supposed to be the concern of general welfare of the nation. However, this new $1.5 trillion government funding bill and $14 billion for Ukraine aid doesn't show support for the people. Since this bill was passed, I feel that the funding of COVID research shouldn't be cut, but the money should be split between other important resources like COVID research, mental health of teens, parents making enough money to provide for their families, educational progress, for example, getting caught back up to speed from the time we spent out of school and in online learning. This not only affected students, but teachers as well, showing the full effect that this has on the economy. The problems of this issue is created in a domino effect, starting from the healthcare industry. If we remember the beginning of COVID, our healthcare system became overwhelmed by the effects of the virus. Eliminated COVID funding puts us at risk of this happening again. This brings me to mental health of teens around my age. When COVID started, many teens started to get depression from being separated and isolated from their peers. From the start of COVID, 1 in 3 teens females and 1 in 5 teen males have gained social anxiety and depression. From source www.scripps.org. This messes up the economy of the United States because if the future generations don't feel comfortable enough to socialize, how will they ever be able to work and provide for their family or even pay taxes? Now that teens are facing these issues, it puts a hold on us from learning to our full capacity. Funding should be put into place to help students get brought back up to speed from the time away from school and transfer to online, and the additional impact of depression and anxiety. This educational suppression not only impacts students but teachers as well. Many of our teachers are parents, and with their children being a part of this total impact, this causes them to stay home with their children. This cuts their pay. We are not saying forget about Ukraine, but we are saying what about us, our home? Now you tell me, is this standing up to the preamble of the United States?
New preamble. We, the true people of the United States, in order to transform a new union, establish full representation of every race, ethnicity, and nationality of the United States, to promote equality, unbiased, justice-informed general welfare, and financial security for future generations.
Great job. What passion you all have. I congratulate you for really, portraying the passion of what you've learned. Tell me one thing that you learned from your studies and your research that you think you could take on and help you in your future lives and careers.
one thing that I have learned is that Black people are very much underrated and underpaid than other races. Also, what I have learned is that people should not have to worry about being discriminated against just because of who they are. I also feel that just because you are gay, black, or any other race, you shouldn't have to worry about not being paid or not being equally as important as other people.
Thank you. Great job. And you guys are changing the world today. So, hats off to you all. Thank you.
I have a question about the policy at the end. You talked about drafting a new preamble, and I thought that was really clever, and I really liked what you had written. Was there anything in particular of that you'd like to see as a policy change, as kind of like a first step that you're hoping to see enacted?
Yes. We want to see the equality for all people and not just the equality for people who created the original preamble, which is all white men that were sitting at the table. It was no other race like black or any female.
Thank you.
Okay, I actually have a quick question. So it seems that you guys covered a variety of different topics here. I noted prison reform, immigration, as well as healthcare and education all mentioned in your new preamble. Which of those do you guys feel should be focused on first, tackled first?
I feel that we should go against the general welfare first because general welfare was the most important in this whole topic because we have to worry about our health, our peace, our mortality, and safety of all citizens. But we cannot do that if our country is providing money for another country as in Ukraine when we still have problems here. By them giving that money away, we now have inflation to where that our prices are going up and many people already cannot afford to pay the prices that they already have. So why spend money and make the prices go up?
I have one additional question, if I may. You guys all seem to work very well together as a group. How did you divide, the research aspects of how you came up with this presentation? Did you guys work collectively, individually, collaborated? Tell me a little bit about the process.
Okay, so first we generated a initial topic of why is the preamble not being upheld in the United States. Then we took the goals from the United States and divided them into each person. She took discrimination. He took racial profiling. All parts of the preamble of the United States, and I took the general welfare function.
Great job. Thank you.
What inspired you to look at the preamble? So like I said, I thought this was very clever, and I really liked that you explored that avenue. What inspired you to look at the preamble as the thing that you wanted to rework and try and draw up a new one to refocus the efforts of government to make its citizens better?
What inspired me to look at the preamble was that, okay, so when I learned about the preamble, I was well underage. I was like in the 4th grade. And since that, I haven't seen the preamble in school ever again, except for once. And I feel like, how are we supposed to uphold the goals of the preamble if we don't go with it?
After your participation in this program focused on the preamble, are any of you guys just out of curiosity interested in pursuing a career in law? This is a general question. I'm just curious to understand how this project and / experience has impacted you personally.
No, I don't want to go into law, but this has impacted me personally because the money that our United States have given to Ukraine and cutting our COVID funding, that could have been put into schools rebuilding homes for parents that couldn't afford it, providing shelter, or like getting children covered up to speed. Because after during the quarantine, many children were backed up because of many people cannot learn through a computer screen. Many people need hands-on experience, and how can we have that if we have no funding for it? Lord, what happened?
Most definitely.
Turn your back over. Good. Come back. Good afternoon. Hello. So y'all did y'all homework? Yeah, I did. Well, we had homework.
How you ain't know we had homework?
So what y'all learned? Mainly that I learned from I did the homework. Was that okay? So for economic hardships on prison strains, I said that's so wrong. Okay, basically was that like when families pay money to these prisons, like they pay for phone calls, they put money on their books, they're paying to send letters. It's like it costs so much, and the prisons aren't getting paid. Like the prisoners aren't getting paid anything. Like mainly like 10 cents a day is what they make. And then they don't focus on their education, their health care. They don't focus on, some people then like really have bad mental issues. Like they can't be enclosed in certain spaces. And we don't even think of those things. We just throw them in cages.
Good is you stated free labor and you stated taxpayers, which is two important factors in this subject. Does anybody else have something to say other than that?
I got a question.
What's your question?
If they got all this bad stuff for prisons, why are we still sending them money?
Because that's a part of taxes, which it is kind of unfair due to the fact that only the poor, not really technically only the poor, but it's keeping the poor poor. The poor is giving every cent to taxes, and they do check to check, they live check to check. So it's kind of unfortunate that we do have to give so much money towards prison systems, and it's not affecting the problem or helping the problem. Anybody else have any questions? Have anything to say?
Okay, so are we necessarily the only country in the world that does this?
No, India suffers with the same issues, poor conditions, inhumane conditions, What's up?
So does India's prisons strain their economic advancements?
It does, because it brings more poverty. It have the majority of their population is basically incarcerated, and so it decreases their human capital.
So would you say that like we could be compared to them? Like, is it equal?
We have a little bit of advantage, but we as human beings behind, what people don't understand is when companies have free labor systems in the prison system, it affects taxes. They don't have to pay taxes due to the fact that a person that is in prison is called state property, which is inhumane, but it's the truth. They're called state property, so they don't have to pay taxes, or they don't have to pay them as much for their labor that they're given. And that affects the community as well, because it's taking money out of everybody's pockets, not just their pockets, not just our everybody.
So it's mainly a decrease in human capital.
It is dramatically increased.
So human capital increases, and then that means we have more money rotated back into the economy.
Yes, that's exactly what it means.
So another country that I also know that focus on rehabilitation mainly, so they won't have reoffenders, is Sweden.
Yes, Sweden is a perfect example. Their return rate is 16% compared to our 50%.
Yes.
I heard about Sweden, and basically, like, they actually focus on the prisoners and like their mental health and stuff, you know. And basically, their main goal there is like for the prisoners to not have to go back to there. Like,
so they put more money into their healthcare, they put more money into their education, and they give them a better opportunity to where that one offender won't be a multiple, to where they don't have as many felony charges as us, so their rates go down.
Yeah, they're basically in Sweden. They're basically building themselves up.
Correct. Yeah, y'all are all the way correct, because they see the people that is in prison as people.
And
We
not
don't
property.
and we don't see our people as people. We see them as property. We see them as a price tag. So to flip it, what we need to do is we need to stop acting like people that are in jail is humane, like unhumane, like that. The conditions that they are put through, and then they're not even having a chance to build when they are released due to all of the limitations that they're faced, the things that they can't do when they get out of jail.
Okay, so what are things that prisoners can't do?
You want to answer that?
Basically, like fall back on other things as far as like jobs and voting.
So, to add on what she's saying, prisoners, once they're out, they aren't considered like citizens anymore. So, like you said, they can't vote. It's hard for them to maintain a job, hard for them to find a place to stay because of their background. Most people, when they look at what you do and when they go on their
Applications, they always ask, are you a felon? Like, it's like, that's what determines your rank in society, really. And also, if you, I'm sorry, you can go.
So the prisoners might as well stay in jail then, huh?
Yeah.
well,
don't forget the student loans.
Basically, because they're in jail, they can't do nothing. They come out, they treated the same. It's just now that they're free, they have to find a way to build their life.
And then if you also look at it, if they want to come out and start their life over different, and like some prisoners that go in don't have education, so when they come out to want to get one, they can't even get a full education. Like, they can't go back and get one. They don't even let them. Like, they can't even go to college.
That we do need programs, and if you read, these are the programs and solutions that I feel like can focus on rehabilitation and focus on helping the economy, not even with the prisoners, with taxpayers, with everybody. We need more learning programs. We need more trades available in all prison systems. We need to add social workers. We need to add counselors. The private, so majority of people go to private prisons. They don't go to federal prisons. Federal prisons is mainly for like murders, or you kill like 4 or 5 people and you in a federal. But a federal, they ask for more money because they actually have programs and things to rehabilitate that person. Private prison systems is more so cheaper for your money. So people would, like, the government would throw, not even the government, the state would throw people in private prisons because it's cheaper. It's mainly because federal prisons, you have to pay more for that person to be in there.
Okay, so for private prisons, for them to be up and running, their you have to have a maximum sentence, like a maximum percentage of prisoners in there for that prison to be running.
They do. You have to keep it at a max capacity. And if you don't, it falls down on the taxpayers. And the taxpayers is the one who's keeping these people in jail. It's a real rigged game, and it's sad because it always falls on the taxpayers. It always falls on the citizens.
Okay, so do you think necessarily that all of the money that the citizens are making are necessarily going straight to taxes because of how much money and tax that they take out of our checks?
71% of taxpayer dollars go towards prison system. So that's a big amount. It's not 50, it's over, it's 75. 71, I'm sorry. It's 71%.
First, I wanted to say, I love great job in the presentation. And I love how creative you guys were. You did a panel discussion in a format of learning and asking questions and answering the question and coming up with a solution. I love that idea. It was very unique and very different. So congratulations on that. Through your learnings, through your discussions, what solution did you guys come up with that could help correct this problem?
Okay, some of the solutions we came up with were rehabilitation for the prisoners, including more learning programs because some prisoners haven't finished high school, college degrees, credit, so when they come out, they'll be able to, figure out their life, find jobs. And another one was helping their families and prisoners with social workers, like introducing them to social workers to talk about the traumas in prison, because they don't talk about that a lot, and they don't really focus on the mental health of prisoners.
Do you think we could do as good of a job as Sweden if we focus on this?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, congratulations. Thank you.
I have a follow-up question about Sweden. So, did you happen to find out what Sweden spends on their prison system relative to the U.S.?
Yes. Each prisoner is 91,000. They spend more than us, but that's because I feel that they spend more because it's helping someone and it's actually benefiting the community and their economics. But for us, we spend less, but we tend to spend 10 times more than them because we have so many prisoners in the prison system.
I was wondering if you guys were able to find out any information during your research about whether or not there was a huge amount of prisons in Sweden that are either federalized or privatized.
Okay, so Sweden only has 3 private prisons, and I think two of them federalized.
Okay.
So mainly for all 3 of these prisons, their reoffender percentage rate is 16% of a decrease by 1% each year. So when they focus more on rehabilitation, it's like their percentage of numbers of prisoners goes down. So as of leading from 2018 up into 2020, the number of prisoners Sweden had was 6,391 of a total population. And their population prison was 69. And I want to chime in when she's saying, I think they did the reform in 1970. They took the prison reform around that time, and their GDP was 2.1, and after 1974, it increased to 7.1%. So that's a dramatic increase that we could have, and because we have 10 times the population that Sweden has. And it's like for our economics, it is that we lose about 307 billion each year, focusing mainly on convictions and people who have spent time in prison. And it's like the U.S. also loses 8.7 billion on public and private prisons, and private prisons mainly spend about 3.9 billion or more. Our main focus is on the whole, and why we chose this is because it is affecting the taxpayers who pays taxes, and that was our main focus on the situation, because it's an ongoing cycle that doesn't profit any communities in our economics in general, because it's only profiting the private companies. And I think we went into depth on how it's affecting taxpayers and advantage for the private companies that invest into the private prisons.
Okay, I actually have a quick question following up on this. So you guys kind of segued into my next question here. Do you guys believe that private companies should be more responsible for providing these resources to incarcerated individuals, as
Oh,
well
yeah.
as creating opportunities for post-incarceration?
Yeah. Oh, yes, definitely. Mainly, I feel that way because 71% of tax goes into prisons. That's a lot of money coming from through in and out our economy. And it's like they don't provide the necessary resources through these prisons. They don't have great education. They don't have health care. There are any social workers or people there to actually make sure they are not necessarily going down a bad road and actually being introduced to a good one. And it's like for their food, they're not always able to get all the resources we need throughout the year in the food that they get. Naturally, they hit them with like Nutrilos, which it consists of all of the foods and vitamins that they need for that year, and they're just supposed to be fine. And it's like they don't like the private companies aren't necessarily seeing the prisoners as people and more so seeing them as property, which honestly needs to mainly change because these are still our people. And it's like we spend so much money into them, but we don't put our focus into them at all. Like, and they're like these private companies and they're making so much profit off of our communities because the families of these prisoners have to send a call. It's like $25. To send a letter, it's $10. Envelopes, $6. Stamps, $7. If you put too many stamps on there, the letter wouldn't be sent. And it's like they're making so much money off these families and these prisoners going back and forth in the community. But for the free labor and the work that these prisoners are doing, they only get paid about 10 cents a day. That's not enough to actually survive off inside their end when they get out. And necessarily, they actually make up most of the stuff that we have in this economy. Like, for an example, Idaho potatoes. Idaho potatoes are made in Idaho in a prison by the prisoners, but they're not getting paid for it. It's necessarily free labor. They aren't getting paid to do the job. But at the end of the day, we don't think of them as prisoners and people that are helping us and making sure that we are okay. We just see them as property that we can control. We feel that the prison system is a bad investment for not just the taxpayers, but just for the economy in general, because it's not benefiting no one. And then how much money we spend each year just trying to function a prison is ridiculous. And we feel that free labor is one of the reasons why prison systems and companies they try to force people in prisons because the companies are having an advantage over it because they don't have to pay taxes because these people are considered as state property. So they want. That's why I feel, or we feel that they keep the prison system at like max capacity, and we have so much overcrowded population in the prison system because they're using their advantages for the best of the community, and it's affecting each community, not just the not just Angola, like it's affecting everybody.
This is my last question. Do you guys feel like there may possibly be a correlation between the amount of prisons being built and the impact of lack of funding and lower economic school systems?
Oh, definitely, mainly because of the pipeline system. Okay, so the pipeline system is mainly from they take, and it's mainly black children from school up into jail. It's like a system of where that it correlates to mainly black kids from public schools are always being the first ones going into these jails, and to mainly to these detention systems, and then being tried as adults. And that's where a necessarily mandatory system comes into play, because they're hitting them with all of these sentences that are very high, but we can actually, what we can actually give them correct sentences. And that will be easier because it takes less money, and we don't have to be paying for, we have to pay for the judges, we have to pay for the public defenders, and all that comes to our taxes. And it's like, if there's less court cases, the higher our human capital go. And it's like for our pipeline systems, from the school system to the jails, it's a higher rate of it being mainly black kids, but like a 15% chance of it being white kids. But at the same time, that is like a way for them to mainly keep the prison, like the private prison rates higher, because if you keep a private prison, well, okay, so like Angola, if you keep Angola at a 95% rate, if it ever
They're still
falls
competing.
below that,
The other team.
if it ever falls below that, that prison will mainly get shut down. So it has to keep that at a higher rate than that, or above that, to make sure that that prison is being ran. And another effect that it has, like she stated, it's affecting our human capital by having so many people behind bars when they could actually be working, or when they do get out of jail, giving them opportunities to get a job, because all of that is stripped away from them, and they have to go through a lot of trials and tribulations just to get a job. And we have so many people that's actually capable of working in our society, and it's affecting our human capital dramatically. So if we focus on rehabilitation in the prison systems, our human capital increases a lot. Very boosty. Because there are, like, our prisoners are denied so much when they go in and when they come out. They don't have public social benefits, food stamps, they're not able to vote, they're not able to travel, like they're not employed for certain fields. And some of these people can actually go into these fields and make a very drastic change. And we're losing all of these people to poor sentencing, or like the 3 strike rules from, like, I could say, parking tickets.
Thank you for all the information. Great job, and keep up the great work and learning all you're learning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I wanted to share that. I thought you all did a very wonderful job, and you were a very knowledgeable group. It's been very informational, and I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Yes, thank you guys for putting together this presentation and answering the questions. Thank you very much.